we're going to start off with the fireside chat with Amado, a second year mechanical engineering student at Stanford. Then we will transition into a fireside chat with Elizabeth, a student in the aircraft maintenance program at the Aviation Institute of Maintenance in Fremont. And finally, we're going to talk about our long awaited next build of another RV12. Now let's dig right in with the fireside chat. Let me hand it over to Amado for an intro.
Thanks, Anand. Yeah, so hi guys, my name is Amado Shrestha. I'm a second year Stanford mechanical engineering student. And just a quick background about my life. I grew up outside of Philadelphia in Gladwin, Pennsylvania. Um, and I then went to boarding school in Connecticut for 4 years. After that, I decided that I wanted to take a gap year, and so I traveled South America and also national parks in the United States, and with money that I earned from being a ski instructor in Jackson Hole and also a lifeguard in Cape Cod. And then from there, I went to Stanford, and I realized that I really like mechanical engineering. And then somewhere in the past 6, 7 months, I really fell in love with aviation, and I decided that I wanted to join the Air Force ROTC in order to become a U.S. Air Force test pilot. And so that's also why I joined EAA, because I'm working on becoming a private pilot right now, and I decided that I really want to pursue aviation in my career. And my personal aspirations are to eventually design electric transport vehicles, so electric planes or electric cars, things like that. So that's where I sort of look with mechanical engineering. And in the Air Force, I hope to fly fighter aircraft is the airframe I'm going for there. And yeah, that's pretty much basic introduction of me. Sports I play polo, which is on horses, with the Stanford Polo Club. I play tennis, and of course, I ski because I'm a ski instructor. I'm actually going to Aspen in a few weeks to go be a ski instructor in Aspen this winter, since my school is not in person. So yeah, that's a good introduction of me, and I can take the questions now.
What motivated you to go into mechanical engineering, and what obstacles did you face on the way?
Right. So I'm still on the way. So I'm still facing obstacles. But what motivated me or is my desire. Well, first of all, to make things. I wanted to do something tangible. So that's the main motivation for mechanical engineering, because there's other kinds of engineering that are just as important for making the world more sustainable, but they don't involve hands-on work. So that's what I really liked about mechanical engineering. And the reason that I studied engineering in the beginning is because in my opinion, I think that global warming is the biggest threat we face in this century, and so I wanted to do something in my career to help combat that. And my idea is that making electric transportation that is better than the gas transportation, and that's why I'm doing mechanical engineering. And the obstacles are mainly surrounding academics. However, in my experience, if you find people that you can work with, then it becomes much easier. And that's pretty much been the way that I've done well so far.
Yeah. So as you mentioned that you didn't pick mechanical engineering before you went to college, what were the other options available for you um, when you got to Stanford?
Oh well, there are all kinds of options. I really had no idea, to be honest. It's just I think I considered being an architect. Yeah, I considered bioengineering. I considered everything. But yeah, it mainly just came down to wanting to do something about climate change, and I thought, well, there's two paths: there's policy or there's engineering, and policy can be very frustrating. So chose
Yeah.
engineering.
So what steps should a high school student take towards a career in mechanical engineering?
Oh, well, first of all, I should say that there's nothing you have to do. However, it's always good to get experience making things. So no matter what it is, if you just go online and you go on maker.com or any of those making websites and just try to make something. And if you like it, then maybe you'd like mechanical engineering. And so just having those little projects is great. I mean, um, you can also invest in a 3D printer, for example. Those are actually a lot less expensive than they sound. I bought one for $170, which is pretty much the same as a paper printer, honestly. And it opens up a whole world of exploration. You can can print anything. I printed an F-22 just because I wanted to have a little F-22 on my desk. So yeah, I would recommend just starting to make things if you really are interested.
What were your favorite maker projects in high school?
Well, as I said, I didn't know I wanted to be a mechanical engineer, so I didn't actually do anything. Um, we did try to make an electric go-kart, but did not secure the funding for that. So yeah, that was honestly I didn't do anything in high school in terms of that.
And any recommendations on the models of 3D printers?
Well, if you want an entry-level 3D printer and that will work well and is not expensive, it's the Creality Ender 3 is the one I have, and I've had no issues with it. I'm looking right now at all the things that I've 3D printed, and they all turned out great. Though. It's not expensive. This is my F-22 that I printed. Yeah.
What do engineering programs at colleges look for in an individual?
I think they look for, well, first of all, you need academic excellence, but that's a given. But I think it also has to do with your curiosity and whether you are really interested in it, or if it's just something that you're doing because your parents told you to, or XYZ insert reason here. But they're looking for people who, in your essays, it'll really show if you're interested in what you're talking about, then that should come out in your essay, and that's how I think the best strategy is to actually want to do it.
So, what are some opportunities that students can take advantage of in high school? So, getting their feet wet.
Well, I think this RV12 build is a great opportunity. That sounds like something I wish I could do in school because you're going to get some hands-on experience, making something for real, no kidding. Uh, and besides that, there's all kinds of making competitions. I don't know off the top of my head, but I'm sure you just Google search that there's tons of high school competitions for making things. There's also there's a robotics league if you're on the robotics team. That's great for learning that sort of practical stuff. Yeah, I think those are the ways that you sort of get that practical experience. And outside of that, I mean, just take your physics classes and your math classes, and you should be all good.
While in the engineering field, you have dived into aviation and performed a solo. What got you passionate about
That's always a good question because I feel like there's never a really good answer because you end up either sounding over dramatic or too academic when you say why you love flying. But I'm sure anyone else who's a pilot here knows the feeling when you take flight for the first time. I've always been interested. I've always been interested in the Air Force planes. But then once I did my demo flight with my instructor, and I just remember grinning from ear to ear behind my mask because it was already coronavirus times as I negotiated the plane off the ground, and after that I knew I wanted to fly.
it? Yeah. Could you talk about how to get internships in college, some of the work you have done there, and how they've honed your skills and broadened your experience?
Yeah, okay. So I have not done a mechanical engineering internship, but I have friends who've gotten many internships, and the key is just to not get discouraged. You're not gonna be no one's gonna want an inexperienced anyone. But the problem is that in order to get experience, you have to get hired eventually. So it's tough. But and I'm speaking again from a position of someone who has not yet been successful. But the people who have, it just comes down to not being afraid to just follow up with emails and really just explore every avenue. Like don't be afraid to like send out like 20 applications, for example. I know a friend who emailed all these people and no one responded except the last one, and it was the NIH, and so he got an internship at the NIH, which is like it's honestly like the worst thing that can happen is someone says no. So yeah, just make sure you put yourself out there.
Networking is really important. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. What, in your opinion, stood out in your essay that got you noticed?
Sorry, could you say that again?
What, in your opinion, stood out in your essay, your college apps that got you noticed?
Ooh. I honestly, um I can't tell you for sure, but I do think that, I genuinely care um, about sustainability and the environment. And so when they asked about why do you want to be a mechanical engineer, because um, I think it came through, or at least I hope so. I also think that a good amount of getting into a selective university is luck, because there's about like 20% of the applicants are qualified, but only 4% will get in. And at that point, an admissions officer actually told me if you put peanut butter on all the applications and you toss them up at the ceiling and you just accepted the ones that stuck, then that would be pretty much the same. So I wouldn't put too much stock into it when it comes to that. When it comes to getting into these kinds of universities, it's yeah.
How did you pick your college?
Um, I picked Stanford because it was the best engineering program, and it was in the most interesting location. So yeah.
Um, Talk about your college experience. What are some opportunities available for students at your university, and what are some differences between high school life and college life?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I was a freshman, I did not take advantage of the opportunities well enough, which is very common for freshmen. You're new and you don't really see all the stuff that's available. But the greatest opportunities, in my opinion, were things that gave you this real world experience. Kind of like what you're getting right now with this RV12 build. That's something that I think is great. That's something that I would have expected in college, but not as a high school student. So what I mean is, there's most colleges will have a form of, for example, they'll have a solar car project, because there's a massive intercollegiate competition between different solar cars. And if you join your school's solar car project, then you're going to learn about engineering a real car. I mean, you're not going to engineer the whole thing, but you're going to be on a specific subsystem, and you're going to learn a lot about that thing, and that's going to really set you up for getting an internship, or just for knowing more about that specific thing that you want to learn more about. I mean, it's a great opportunity that I'm taking advantage of this year, but I did not know about last year. Another great one is most colleges have some sort of space initiative or space club that'll make rockets and they'll go into the sky. There's also usually an aviation club, and so I would just say, really pay attention at whatever sort of club fair you have, and really look at the crazy opportunities that can be provided to you at a college, because a lot of these places, they have a lot of funding, so you can do some really cool stuff. Like I know that for our space initiative program, in the weeks where we're in campus, they have at least like two little launches a week. And so, I mean, that's just a great opportunity to just get real world experience. And that sort of speaks to the difference between high school and college, because in high school, it's sort of, there's one thing you're doing, right? There's sort of a central,
Yeah.
school, and that like everyone sort of knows everybody. But in college, there's not like there's no like center, in my opinion, in my experience, because there everyone, you kind of go your own way and you find your own people, which is, it's more like real life maybe. So I think that that's probably the main difference I've encountered.
So, Stanford has a flying club, right? The Air Force ROTC, right?
Stanford has, sorry, what did you
And
say?
a flying club, right? Air Force ROTC.
There's no flying club, but there is Air Force ROTC at San Jose State University, which is the Stanford cadets are just they attend that one.
Um, so, what are some internship shadow opportunities or programs available for high school students at Stanford?
Ooh, to be honest, I really don't know. I know that there's Stanford Online High School, which is something that people take advantage of. However, I think it's quite expensive. But I, to be honest with you, I honestly don't know. I was not in the area when I was a high school student, so yeah.
Yeah. Um, does it help to partake in community service in high school?
I would say, okay, so this gets back to what I was saying before about actually being passionate about what you're talking about. Not if you don't want to, is the answer. If there is some community service that you really want to do, then that will show on your application, because you'll actually be passionate about that thing you're doing. If you're digging latrines in Puerto Rico, that sort of voluntourism thing, that does not look that does not look that great. So I think that it really just comes down to whether you're actually doing something that you care about, which is true for pretty much everything that you put on your application.
So that was all the questions. If anyone has any other questions, just put them in the chat. Just wait 30 seconds or so.
Oh, I see the question about self-driving vehicles in Stanford. I actually hope to get involved in that. I don't know if you've seen the drifting car, but you can look it up on YouTube. They made a self-driving car that drifts at Stanford. So yeah, that looks pretty good. I did not get into polo until I was a freshman at Stanford. So it was not something that I could really afford as a high school student. But that's one example of a club where they have funding and you can do something that is usually not available. So that's the kind of things that you got to take advantage of in college, in my opinion.
Amado, your insights were fascinating. It was great to learn about your experience as a mechanical engineering student and how you got your feet wet in aviation. Now it's time for a fireside chat with Elizabeth, who is part of the A&P program at the Aviation Institute of Fremont. Let me hand it over to Elizabeth for an intro of the A&P program.
Hello, I'm Elizabeth, as was previously stated. So the A&P program that I'm involved in is a 21-month long program where you get your airframe and power plant mechanic certificate. There's not a whole lot else to it. Once you're done, you're certified to work on aircraft in a semi-limited capacity. There's a lot of hands-on stuff. It's mostly that. You learn how to fix things and follow instructions to fix other things that they don't directly teach you how to do.
Wow, that was intriguing. As we transition into the build, could you describe how you got involved in the first RV-12 and how that experience affected you?
I got involved because the airport manager introduced me to some of the people who were running the build at the time. It was really fantastic because it arrived just around when previously I had been more interested in flying, but I was informed at some point during that process that that probably wouldn't be feasible. So this was a really positive way for me to continue engaging in aviation, although more on the building side than the flying side.
Yeah. What was the hardest part of the original build?
It's not inherently difficult in terms of skills required, the tasks that need to be performed. It's just tedious, and there needs to be a lot of checking and double checking and making sure that we are properly following the instructions, and organization, I think, is also a factor. So keeping organized and making sure that you're doing everything correctly are the two hardest parts of the process.
Yeah. And what got you interested in leading the next build?
I'm really excited about it because I think that it will give me a greater opportunity to engage with the building process and kind of reach my hands into all different aspects of the build. I would be more limited to one specific system as opposed to having a general overview of progress. And I think it can be a really positive experience for other people who are involved. And I'd like to see
thank
that.
you for taking the time out, Amado and Elizabeth, for your insights.